VHS is, depending on who you might speak to in this very room, either a very smart, very literate horror compendium. It's got 6 horror stories, all done point of view, all a bit paranormal activity, that kind of veins running through it, or it is just a string of douchebaggery. Myself, I think it's very effective. I think some of the stories are definitely stronger than others. I was very disappointed that Ty West's is the weakest of the stories. It is essentially, as many films are, and I know I repeat this phrase a lot in this podcast, but this film is essentially bitches be crazy in chapters. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, I think it's got funhouse horror. It's got kind of off-kilter horror. It does do the paranormal activity thing very blatantly at one point, to the point of, yeah, are you sure you're doing this? Well, what did you guys think of it?
Do you want to?
No, after you, Claire. Okay. Go on.
I think we were too... well, I generally really liked it. And I thought, as you said, I thought some stories were stronger than others. I thought some were interesting. To be honest, when I first started watching the film, I hadn't read a thing about it. I didn't know what to expect. So I literally sat down and thought, what the hell is going on? Because I didn't realise that it was going to turn into 6 stories. So as soon as I started watching it, I was like, what's this now? What's happening? I think the storytelling in between sections, obviously not to give too many spoilers away, I think was slightly scatty. It didn't really kind of make too much sense. I think watching it again for the second time, I think it will make a lot more sense to me.
Should have been in 4:3 though.
But
that annoyed me.
It should have been what? Sorry,
4:3 ratio.
Oh yeah. It's
what a dick. Eh?
It's the first story. I think I realised after the first story, it's actually going to be mini shorts in between. So once I understood what their format was, I could then kind of sit back and enjoy it as each story came. I think the weakest for me was the sick thing that happened to Emily when she was younger.
Oh yeah.
Should I give any spoilers? I don't really.
No, we shouldn't give spoilers.
Really, for me it was
classic.
I don't really want to. It's it wasn't very clear what it was, and so I think my favourite one actually was the psychotic serial killer Thai story.
Really?
Because apart from the paranormal house one at the end, but I don't know, I just thought that it was quite interesting, and it was because it wasn't a paranormal one, it was a psycho basically. It was somebody going a bit crazy, and it's just because I just didn't expect it. I think with the rest I knew something crazy or monster was going to come out, or some kind of something random. With this one I had no clue what was going to happen, and then when I saw it I was like, oh well, that was that then. But it ended very quickly, and I had to rewatch some of the film just to make sure I actually got it. I think it definitely requires a second watch, just to make sure that you get all of the detail.
Russ, will you be watching this?
I probably won't be watching it again. No, I'm a fan of horror films. I like them a lot, which is why I was quite looking forward to seeing it. But within kind of the first 30 seconds, I wrote down this film is filled with idiots, which was a bit of a shame. I felt the kind of framing story didn't work at all for me. I don't think a framing story in a kind of a portmanteau horror doesn't need to try and be that clever. I think if you're making a portmanteau horror film, you can have anything you like. You know, a man walks into a video store and asks the guy, "Hey, should I watch any videos?" That works. It doesn't have to be part of it as such, and I think that it just wasn't very good, and just a bit silly.
That's how I felt about that.
I think the problem, I have a general problem with the format of it, in that there were parts that were scary and tense, but one of the most successful reasons for horror films is that those kind of peaks and troughs build, and they come to a climax, and then you're being hit with more and more of them, and you don't get that respite. Like something like The Woman in Black, which obviously was out a few years ago, which I thought was an excellent horror film. And that's one of the reasons why it's so good, is that the first kind of hour, you're hit maybe every kind of 15, 20 minutes with something that's a bit scary, but the last 30 minutes, you're not going to get a rest. You're kind of going for it. And the problem with this format is every 10, 15 minutes, you're back to square one. and you're being introduced to new characters, and you're, oh yeah, we're on a trip, oh yeah, we're doing a Skype, oh yeah, we're going to a party. Okay, well, I don't care anymore because I was up here and now I'm back down here again, and there's no build. And so that was a problem for me. The other problem I had was kind of the first story and the fourth one where they kind of use Skype were the only ones that even attempted to integrate the camera into any kind of narrative. The rest of them, it was just that classic, hey, let's film everything. It's found footage, which just in these days with things like Chronicle and stuff, you know, there's better ways of kind of handling it. And I was surprised that given a format which should be innovative and quick 15 minutes, people should have been able to come up with something better than that. The other one is, I mean, I thought only two out of the 6 stories were any good. Personally, I didn't like one of them. The first one was good, although it was a species rip-off. That doesn't matter. I thought it was quite effective, and the special effects were very nicely interwoven with kind of the reality and the footage of it. The second one I found really boring. The third one, which happened in the woods, was rubbish. And the fourth one was like an episode of Paranormal Activity, which I watched all the way through and was scarier. And like I say, the fourth one I thought was okay. Haunted House. It had some neat kind of graphics. It had a neat twist in it, which I liked as well. So I thought that was
very
quite good.
Fun house
and
one,
if it had ended there and didn't go back to this strange framing narrative, it would have been a better end. But apart from that, yes, VHS. I prefer DVDs.
Okay, well, I'm quite looking forward to VHS 2 with a segment directed by Gareth Evans, who made the raid. That takes us up to about half an hour, so thank you very much for listening to 24 Lives Per Second.